FBC Firebreak from Remedy is shaping up to be a very interesting co-op shooter, combining one of my favorite settings with really creative weapons, abilities and mission objectives. It's coming to PS Plus Extra and Game Pass day 1, so let's go over everything that we know so far. Thanks to Remedy Entertainment for sponsoring the video. You can also check out the link in the description to wishlist FBC Firebreak, which would really support the channel too. And let's start by talking about where the game takes place, as the oldest house is a very interesting setting. In case you haven't played Control and are unfamiliar, the oldest house is the headquarters for the Federal Bureau of Control. This organization is tasked with monitoring and containing paranatural objects and events, which are then stored and studied in the oldest house. With the building being a paranatural object itself, there are always strange things going on. But after it was invaded by the mysterious Hiss during the events of Control, 6 years before Firebreak takes place, things have gotten a bit out of hand. Where a normal office would have to deal with issues like leakage or ventilation issues, the FBC headquarters is plagued by stranger problems like sentient sticky notes that eventually come together into a giant monstrosity called Sticky Ricky. Yes, the ideas in this universe are equal parts terrifying, bizarre and hilarious, and it's one of the reasons why I love this setting so much. To deal with these supernatural crises, the FBC has created the Firebreak Initiative, a special response unit of combat engineers. You and your friends will be joining this division and are sent out in teams of 3 to deal with the Hiss and the supernatural objects and creatures living in the oldest house. Working for the FBC means that you'll have access to a wide variety of firearms, interesting tools and gadgets, and even paranormal objects of power. You'll get to choose between 3 crisis kits that each come with their own unique equipment like gadgets and grenades. Your tools are going to be the most defining feature for each kit, so let's go over those. First, there is the splash kit with its crank-operated fluidic ejector, which shoots blobs of water at a rapid pace. And this has many different applications, as it can be used to douse fires, slow down enemies, or even cleanse harmful status effects of your teammates. Then there's the jump kit, who has an electrokinetic charge impactor. This device releases a short-range blast of electricity, kind of like a shotgun, but it can also be shot towards the ground to launch yourself up and forward, and can repair various electronic devices found throughout the oldest house. And finally, there's the fix kit that uses a big wrench, which, yes, that is the official name. While it might not sound impressive, the big wrench works as both a melee weapon with a gap closing charge ability and a repair wrench that can fix things like broken turrets and healing showers. So you can see how these have a big impact on your playstyle, and things get even crazier once you start adding special mods called Altered Augments. I'll go over those more in a bit, because first let's talk about what you'll actually be doing. Just like your tools, the missions or jobs you'll complete in the oldest house are pretty strange, ranging from erasing those sticky notes I mentioned earlier to loading a minecart with radioactive pearls and escorting it through the level. Safe to say, you won't know what to expect on your first playthrough, but even repeated attempts are made fun and worthwhile thanks to Firebreak's unique take on mission difficulty. For each job, you select both a threat level and a clearance level, with the threat level being your more traditional difficulty selection. So this one determines how often the Hiss show up, how quickly they notice you, and what types of enemies are going to be in the mission. Clearance levels, on the other hand, decide the complexity and duration of the job, as the higher this level, the more zones you need to make it through before you can complete the mission. You unlock higher clearance levels by completing a job, so you're effectively unlocking new parts of a level each time you make it to the end. There are more things that are influenced by these levels, by the way, but Remedy have not shared those yet. From what we already know, it seems like you can fine-tune both the length and the difficulty of each mission though. But you don't want to make things too difficult, as failure can lead to you losing the resources you earned over the course of a level. You only have a limited number of lives, or volunteers as they are listed, and yeah, do with that information what you will. But if you run out of volunteers, the mission ends early, and any resources you collected during it will be lost. You do earn some experience though, even if you fail, so you're never left empty-handed. And by the way, if you enjoyed the video so far, it would be awesome if you could leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. But yeah, those resources are of course needed for character progression, and while we don't have the full picture yet, Firebreak introduces some very interesting ideas. Next to your gear and gadgets, characters also have perk slots, up to a maximum of 9 with a fully upgraded kit. Now that is pretty standard, but you can actually equip the same perk twice to strengthen the effect, or 3 times to share the effect with nearby teammates. So that means you have to choose between having a ton of different effects or fewer but stronger perks that can also be shared with allies. But your strongest asset methods as a Firebreaker will be those altered augments I mentioned earlier, which function like a sort of ultimate for each kit's tool. The Splash Kit can attach a teapot to the tool, which boils the water to now deal fire damage and makes it so that the weapon won't overheat. With the Fix Kit, you can attach a piggy bank to the big wrench that shatters on impact, summoning a storm of coins that damages enemies caught in it. And the Jump Kit has access to my favorite augment, the Garden Gnome. You attach this little guy in a canister, then fire him off into a group of his. The gnome will then begin to summon lightning strikes in a radius around him and will start frantically moving around. You do want to be careful with these augments though, as friendly fire is a thing in FBC Firebreak. While that's true for your basic weapons as well, you can imagine that a rampaging Garden Gnome will wreak much more havoc if your team is caught in its path. With the His Wrecking House, it's also inevitable that you'll eventually come across rogue altered objects called corrupted items. These effectively work as modifiers to make a job more interesting. One really cool example of these corrupted items is a floating traffic light that can appear in a level. If the light switches to red and you are caught moving, you'll take heavy damage, so you have to be much more aware of when and where you're running during that encounter. If you ever need to heal though, you can find various showers throughout a level that will cleanse status effects and top off your health. However, in some cases the heater for these is broken, which results in a cold shower that will slow you down after you step out. So make sure to check the heater before you step in to avoid this problem. And yeah, since we now established that taking a shower heals you, that also means the tool from the Splash Kit heals your allies when you splash them with water as well. And while you can play jobs in Firebreak solo, teamwork is heavily encouraged, largely because of the synergy between the different kits. With the Jump and Fix Kit both able to repair different objects throughout the oldest house, you'll need both if you want to make the most of its facilities. And the Splash Kit's ability to douse flames will keep pathways open for teammates and remove an advantage for the Hiss, as these creatures actually get stronger when they are exposed to heat. Speaking of elements, there are some great synergies here too, as electrocuting an enemy doused in water will release a much stronger chain lightning shock that can devastate multiple Hiss. In order to tackle the increasingly difficult and complicated jobs you'll take on, you can spend resources you find in the requisitions menu to unlock gear upgrades, cosmetic items, and those altered augments I mentioned earlier. Requisitions function sort of like a battle pass, so you can expect more reward tracks to be added post-launch. And because I know this might trigger some alarm bells, I immediately want to make it clear that Remedy has already stated that all playable content released post-launch will be free for all players. Requisitions are not time-gated either and can be progressed at your own pace. In general, the team is very intent on moving away from the FOMO-driven formula employed by some other games in the genre. So that means that new missions, new reward tracks, and maybe even new kits later down the line will be available for everyone, regardless of when you decide to pick up the game. So as you can see, FBC Firebreak brings a ton of interesting ideas to the table, so I am definitely looking forward to when it releases on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and on Steam and the Epic Games Store for PC. Again, the game will also be available day one on PC Game Pass Ultimate, and PS Plus Extra and Premium at release on June 17th. Thanks again to Remedy Entertainment for sponsoring the video. Remember to subscribe to not miss the next one. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and you can watch more of our content by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.